Alright, Section 3, Special Conditions and Problems During Operation. There are several conditions that may be encountered from time to time for the require the special operation instruction. The instruction for the close with no damage to the equipment will result with careless operation under special conditions can be very costly. Starting the engines, close with all the switches distribution panel. At the engine station control the fuel and pump switches. Close the control and fuel pump switches. Place the independent brake valve in the full application position. Check the pneumatic control switch. Be sure to release that the release lever is removed with the control stand. Check the engine lube and oil water level. The oil level in the governor. Check the oil water level. The oil level in the governor and air compressor. Turn the signal alarm. Sting the signal alarm ship by placing test the signal alarm by placing the isolation switch in the run position momentarily. Blue light should light and bell should ring and ring. Hey, if the engine has been shut down more than 2 hours, open the cylinder test valve, pull and shaft close, press the start button on the engine control panel. And if the engine has been shut down for more than 2 opens, open the cylinder test valve, then pull the lay shaft close, and then push the start button on the engine control panel. Crank the engine over a few revolutions. If the water discharges from the cylinder, investigate. If not, test the valves and close the test valves and proceed. Turn off the fuel pump switch and check the fuel flow with the sight glass with the fuel filter nearest to the engine mount with the right from the engine. Check the setting with the overspeed trip, then pull the set with the check with the governor on the oil alarm trip button. Hold the lay shaft 1/4 open. Press the engine start button. Engine start in not more than 15 seconds. Check the oil pressure. Check with the ground relay. Check the starter contactor interlocks out of the engine one until the water temperature comes up through the green area on the gauge before working the engine. Place the isolation switch and switch the running position down and start with the trouble in Section 5. For 301, stop the engine. From stopping the well under power, see Article 314. Place the isolation switch in the start position. Push the engine stop button. Hold it until the engine stops. Place the fuel pump switch in the out position. Open the cylinder test valve over the engine if more than 2 hours layover. 303. Securing locomotive of the engine control station with the preparation for the layover. Place the transition on the opposition plate for the reverse level in the neutral position. Move the lever with the control. Open all the switches and push button control box distribution panel after the engine has been stopped. Release the air brake. Set the handbrake as in the apply with the precaution again for the locomotive moving the block wheels. 304. Freezing weather precautions. Even the freezing weather precautions must be taken to see that the water and locomotive do not freeze. If the number 1 engine is shut down, plus put the train limit and steam available to open the steam emission valve of this engine G valve. Cooling water supply tank steam emission valve is located with the engine floor room left control governor left corner of the governor end of the engine. Do not confuse with this valve. Alright, 1 is the cab heater, 2 is the cab heater steam valve, 3 is your cab heater valve, 4, 5, and 6 on the top, and then arc. Check your steam heating line drain valve, 5 is the check valve, 6 the steam pressure reducing valve, 7 the steam adjusting valve, and 8 is underneath the arc, it's steam train line connection. Number 9, the cab heater train valve, and 10, the engine cooling water tank. Or with the engine drain valve closed, the valve 3, open valve 2, and 7 with the figure 3-1 with the valve 4 should be closed in the valve 9 crank with the allow the condensation from the train. If the train line steam is not available, the entire steam will have the drain with the steam emission valve to provide with the following equipment over the engine and with the steam generator operated with the steam and the external source may be salived to prevent it freezing. Steam generator, these valves should be open with the heating coil valve, water suction line valve with the water tank valve for detailed instructions. See the generator section. Engine cooling, so the valve should be open with the steam emission valve of the engine cooling water valve with the steam supply with the cab heaters to all the water tank valve and then G valve. In freezing weather, the heating facilities are not available. All the water must be drained from the locomotive to the engine cooling system. The cab heater, see figure 3-1, steam generator, C steam generator section, 3 steam generator, water tank, fuel, toilet, water tank, the G valve of the air system, air compressor, oil separator, upper sump and lower sump reservoirs. Number 2, main reservoir under the cab floor, type H filter, electric control, air regulator, electric control, air reservoir, strainers, engine control, instrument panel, electrical control cabinet, air compressor, interlocker. Alright, 305, towing a locomotive. Be sure the reverse lever the neutral position for the locomotive to be towed with the train with the appreciable distance for the reverse switch must be in place for the neutral locking position. Take the lock of the reverser switch, remove the locking pin with the normal during operation. Screw with the left hand side with the reverser half of the reverse lever in the neutral position. Punch with the punch and on the top of the reverser switch light to the center. If the control of the air is not available, play with the wrench in the same square portion on the switch shaft of the sensor switch manually. And after the switch has been center shut off the control air, insert the pin to the hole of the right side of the reversing housing with a push of the pin all the way through the reverser switch and the shaft. With the screw the pin with the thread hole on the left side of the reversing housing. All isolation switches must be start position and necessary to start with the engine with the idle with the reason with the towing locomotive with the fuel pump control stand switch with the closed position. 3. The air brake equipment should be in accordance with the air brake manufacturer bulletin. 306 operating with the transition load indicator meter. Manual operation transition should be made in accordance with the reading of the transition meter. This should never be made with the speed indicator reading except with the transition meter fall within the function. If any type of the transition meter does not function properly, the lead unit that has been isolated transition should be made reference to the locomotive speed. The table should be approximately speed in miles per hour with the 40-inch wheels, and the transition should occur with a full throttle. Show the throttle from notches 1 to 3 to 4 to 3 to 2, and then 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 3, 3 to 2, 2 to 1, 1 to 2, 3 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 3, 2 to 2, 2 to 1 gear ratio for your locomotive traction motors. Alright, 307. The operating of the steam locomotive is helpful to move with a large tonnage of the train with a heavy the grades ordinarily encountered with the mountainous terrain with the steam of the locomotive generally you the head help preserve in the such a movement that must be known with the steam locomotive can and will and pull and share the load of the tonnage of the train with except for the maximum continuous tonnage of the rating with the diesel locomotive with the grade of comfort with the which of the trains move with the steam locomotive most capable of the pulling and share with the tonnage without danger of slipping. Steam locomotives with the help of often the tonnage rating with the based on the speed is lower with the continuous rating with the speed of the diesel engine as such with the speed of the diesel light locomotive observed more with the proportional shift of the load ends in the tonnage rating with the base on the higher speed as a result of the diesel engine mode come overload with the endeavoring to gain with the minimum speed with the continuous rating with it will indicate the transition indicator meter pointer to the right of the number 1 green area overload area. Under these conditions, remove the use of the diesel-electric locomotive throttle, allowing the train to stop at the drop of the steam locomotive to pick up the proper share of the tonnage. The speed is decreased with the transition indicator meter point with the right, and the vent with the throttle with the point of the reduces reach of the number 1 green area. The pointer remains. The green area steam locomotive, you would assume with each of the tonnage remove the overload with the diesel locomotive. The operation should continue with the throttle position. Permissible operator of the diesel locomotive with the full throttle to get over at grade as quickly as possible. Provide time and overload other than exceeding the locomotive that never operated with the continuously below the 5th throttle position. Should the transition meter for the out of the ridge for the necessary for the handle of the throttle with the reference of the speed indicator instead of the transition indicator the indicator of the table of the approximate contention for the speed range given them should be the U for the apply with the data for the table to reduce the throttle notch by notch. E for the throttle reduction allow the train speed to become steady ready. Speed indicator comparable to the reading with the figure with the table, the opposition throttle position being E with the column corresponding with the gear ratio of the locomotive. The train speed lower than the table. Figure reducing the throttle another notch with the repeat with the procedure comparing the speed with the line and table to the new throttle position. The throttle reduction with the frame speed becomes equal to or higher to the table speed reading. Continues the operation with the throttle position for 8, 7, 6, and 5 and your gear ratios. And this is approximately continuous speed ratings miles per hour 40-inch wheels. For example, the U of the table is given below, assuming the locomotive is 1 and 62 and 52 and 15 gear ratio, assume the transition number 1 and the throttle number 9, and throttle to run to A position and help with the locomotive the train speed with the 10 miles an hour under the 11 miles per hour shift with the table of the 62, 15 gear ratio locomotive throttle. 8 locomotives overload with the transition indicator meter working with the pointer with the wooden made on the right of the number of the 1 green area with the 6 825 amp with the throttle with the reduce the run with the 7 speed drop at 8.5 millimeters miles per hour. Help with the locomotive with the more load. Locomotive is still overload with the center of the table of 9.5 but it's still running 7. Next to them run 6. The speed becomes the 7 notch. This check for the continuous speed rating with the table of operation should be continued with the throttle in odd position. Alright, 308, operating the diesel locomotive with the helper. The number of the diesel locomotive within 12 2 for the pinion with the beginning with the pusher, and the help with the trip with the locomotive with the 12 2 for the pinion, 2 with the pusher, help with another locomotive within 15 2 for the large pinion with the throttle on the 15 2 for the large pinion. The locomotive should be handled with the same manner as steam locomotive with helper with a U, but is desirable with the railroad operation to get the train over the hill with a short time possible. The better if the before the time overload position. You can see the throttle should be reduced for the locomotive with the larger pinion gear to reduce the large load, putting the more load on the locomotive with the smaller pinion, if in the manner of the indicator pointer will be brought back to the safe operating zone. At the time of the engine man with the 12-2 pinion locomotive that will take with the transition indicator with the meter locomotive is not overloaded if the pointer of the 12-2 locomotive is overloaded zone at the top of the hill within the indicator mileage limit of the overload zone isn't operating with a permissible speed in order to get over the hill as short time as possible over the time overload operation succeeding with the train should be reviewed with the instruction applied with any combination locomotive with the differing gear ratios. The slipping occurs with reduce the throttle below the slipping point with observe this operate the center against opening the throttle thread after the center, so operation center should be used to prevent slipping, not to stop it. 309, operating with a short time with the overload zone. When the starting of the train with the pointer with the transition indicator will usually move temporarily into the short time overload section of the meter. The representing with a normal condition pointer return with the number 1 green area with the train speed increases. If the pointer remains overload area with the potential for the section with the meter over the grade with the transition level, the number 1 position locomotive is overloaded. Alright, we were on, where were we at? Actually, I had a phone call. Alright, let's start out with 309. Operating with a short time overload zone. With a starting with a pointer with the transition indicator meter, you will move tablet into the short term overload detection with the meter with the represent with the normal condition. If the pointer return with the number 1 green area with the train speed increase, if the pointer remain with the overload area ends with the section of the meter with the gray with the transition level with the number 1 position. The locomotive is overloaded. The locomotive is designed to start the overload operation for the condition not exceeding with a certain limit for the greater overload. Further, the pointer switching and swing into the overload area less time, and the locomotive can operate with the motors heating excessively. Tonnage speed rating. With the tonnage rating of the F7 locomotive depending on the number of the gear rate with the gear ratio between the pinion of each of the traction motor axle gear with which meshes. The table below lists the ton of the various horsepower rating with the gear ratios, also show the approximate speed width of the locomotive will develop the hauling and the rated tonnage for the maximum permissible operating of the locomotive. For each gear ratio is given the representative of the road speed with the traction motor with the traction maximum safe with the RPM of the train. These minimum speed but must not be used with the rating tonnage, but used only as a guide to approximate running speed of the rate of tonnage. While this listed tonnage rating with also must be the full rated output, the engine or lower power of the engine offline with the tonnage should be adjusted with the proportional decreased speed power. You need a tonnage rating of the figure F7 gear ratio of the horsepower 6,000 to 1,500 and 1,500 increments at grades 1% to 2%, and tonnage ratings at the gear ratio 6212. No, the FS7 locomotive of the 6512 with the gear ratio of the D27 of the motor of the D7 and 17 motors for the armature for the wound with the new silicone coil will be permitted to operate with 55 miles an hour maximum speed, and all others 50 miles an hour maximum speed. In order to overload electrical equipment is important with the tonnage of the train for the cap of the maximum tonnage of the rating for the low with the except with the special tonnage rating have been supplied with the railroad locomotive of the manufacturer. Problems during Operation 311. If the alarm bell rings the alarm signal, it will be delayed until effective with the red engine water temperature over the 208 outlet with approximately 200 with the gauge check for the water level. Shutters and fan with the condition cannot be corrected. Once isolate the engine, investigate with the cause of the fuel pump motor with the view of the engine control panel blown with the fuel pump. The stop of the cooling system fan with the shutter of the control will be inoperative with the air supply shut-off valve with the shutters mounted on the left and wall car body out with the opposite engine. Yellow or blue lube oil pressure with the or the high loop oil section engine water will stop the isolate with the engine, reset with the governor, trip with the between button, stop the alarm bell, check with the oil level of the condition. If no difficulty event with the engine, check the oil pressure, play with the engine online, watch oil pressure suction gauge with under the extreme high temperature for the otherwise normal engine over the oil pressure and fall low enough to trip the alarm. Blue alternator failure. Whenever the engine stops while on the line, the light will stop the engine with of course stop the alternator. Check the overhead trip of the fuel with the slow start starts the engine. Attempt to put the engine online. If the light comes on and instantly with the lights will engine run with a check with auxiliary generator field fuse, alternator field fuse. Light does not come on after the engine is started, but the engine will not respond. The throttle check the ground relay. See Article 322. Green steam generator failure. See Section 6. No. Yellow loop oil alarm light will burn when the governor low oil alarm switch is tripped with the isolation switch for the start with the running position. The oil water line alternator failure lights enabled with the fuel pump control circuit with the pneumatic control switch tripped with the fuel pump and then the cap pulled out with the fuel pump fuse for the operating with the unit below. These alarms will not operate. Alright, if the locomotive fails all units to produce the power of the start when the engine is running, if the engines are stopped at the start of the engine, check with the control of the generator field for the fuel pump switch with the position for the reverse level to check the pneumatic control switch. Tall tail pin should be down with an indicating light with a no burner, not burning. Check with the control fuse, move the throttle, stop with the position engine beginning to die. Quickly return the throttle to idle if the engine does not slow down. Check with the new control fuse with the distribution panel. Check with the brakes. 5. If the trouble still persists, check at each of the unit with the note that the locomotive is putting out the power of the output with the A unit that can be directly with the from and the load indicating immediately the throttle response can be told. And sound of the engine, both important observations. 313. Any of the unit that failed to produce with the engine running with the engine stop with the overspeed with the trip of the lever of the fuel flow with the low oil pressure for the trip of the governor and start of the engine in Article 300. See Article 300. Refer to Figure 2.1 Section 2 with the check with each of the under unit failure with the proper setting with the reading. Check with the battery fuel fluid with the low voltage panel. Check with the control jumper between the units. Then make the loose contact with the dirty burn. Careful check with the items revealed with the normal difficulty 75%. With the troubles or unusual difficulties require the careful study of the particular situation. Any piece of the mechanical equipment is subject to some difficulties. Arrangement of the devices provided with the locomotive to prevent damage. Case of the failure, careless operation, overloading with once with exemption with the entire the responsibility with the engine man. As soon as it is apparent that the tonnage is greater, the engine man must take the proper step to reduce the train tonnage. In case of the serious difficulty, with the engine should be immediately isolated with the investigation made. Alright, isolating and stopping the engine while under the power using the dynamic brake. If the normal stop the procedure for the Article 301, if the becomes necessary to take the engine off over the line, then the locomotive is operating under the power that should be done as follows. Pull the manual with the control level to shut, hold until the engine stops. When the bell starts ringing, play for the isolation switch in the start position, play for the fuel pump switch in the off position. Starting the placing of the engine while the locomotive is under power. Starting the engine in the usual way. After lubricating and oil pressure builds up, place the isolation switch in the run position. The throttle is above the third position. Hold off the governor to injector leakage, and with the lay shaft the manual control lever to allow the engine to come to a speed. Gradually down, play with the engine on the line with the dynamic brakes. Specific difficulties 316. Recovery of the control brake after the penalty application. Place the automatic brake valve in the lap position. Close the throttle to the idle. Play for the safety pedal on the control foot pedal. Wait until the application pipe builds up at the main reserve for the pressure with the listen for the exhaust and the watch for the pneumatic control switch. If you've reset the train control, check with the pneumatic control switch. Relief of the brakes. If the pneumatic control switch will not reset with the automatic brake valve handle in the lap after the emergency application, play for the brake valve handle in the running position. Second with the pneumatic control switch. Recover the brake with the Article 316 with the pneumatic control switch. Trip the locomotive they have the power with the number of the open one throttle position showing the load indicating meter with the engine speed will not advance with the throttle with the open with the fuel pump will stop with the number 5 with the number 6 throttle position of the engine will stop. No bells will ring. Fuel pump switch in the cab of the open with the fuel pump view for the distribution panel below will cover the same difficulty in the trip with the pneumatic control switch. 318. The auxiliary generator charging rate. Failure with the auxiliary generator to start with the top of the excitation over the alternator with the case causes a blue light normal opposite with the battery ammeter with the zero with some of the change of the auxiliary light. Auxiliary generator armature shown with the 20 and 30 amp the chart with the 150 amperes output fuse blown in case with the auxiliary generator failed with the stop in the unit with the check with the 330 amperes fuse with the 150 amperes output fuse. 319. Starting the contactors. Make contact points but must not be stick closed. The interlocking look down underneath the main contactor must be closed. The making the good contact. The interlocks do not close. Make contact with the engine will speed with the throttle open but will not load. Open the number 5 throttle position. Fuel indicator on the governor unbalanced with the minimum fuel with the low power position with the regulator pointed towards the 5 o'clock. 320. Control air. Control air should be between 80 and plus or minus 3 pounds of the supply with the close with the main contract with the other air operated with accessories with the failure to control the air stop of the power output with the main contact will not close. This engine will speed with the respond with the throttle above the number 5. The throttle position fuel indicator will be unbalanced with the minimum fuel with the lower power position and load regulator will point toward 5 o'clock and see in Article 327. 321 battery ammeter will show the always be show zero as some or some charge. If the discharge is indicated with a check of the auxiliary generator output, but the trouble cannot be running to anticipate the failure, battery runs down. Ground relay pointer points to the yellow dot when the red dot relay trip. When the ground relay strip of the engine will not speed up if the throttle is open. If the number 5 and the number 6 throttle position will stop, then blue light will light. To the reset, isolate the engine, reset the relay, and put the engine online. The relay contains the end of the trip and isolate unit. Article 324. 323 wheel slip relay. The wheel slip relay located electrical control pattern behind the power contactors. One pair of the wheels will slip with the wheel locomotive with the under power with the relay will pick up the lighting of the wheel slip light intermittently as the wheel slip stops slipping and then slip it again to warn the engine man with the throttle should be reduced to the stop of the slipping and the sand applied to prevent further slipping when the throttle is reopened. Alright, alarm indication for the one pair of the wheel with the side. With the one pair of the wheels should be slide when the starting of the train. The wheel slip light with the flash intermittently with the train speed increase with the light will stay on more with the continuous speed will go out and not out when the throttle is reduced and sand applied with the light will go on through the throttle is closed with the idle. Under this condition, the engine crew should make the immediate investigation, determine the cover over the wheels with the side sliding due to the lock brake or a broken gear tooth, the wedge between the pinion and the ring gear of the motor bearing of the must be seen. Repeated ground action accompanied with the unusual noise, such as the continuous thumping and the squealing of the smelling of the burning burning paint insulation may be the indication of the various signs, serious traction motor trouble that they should be investigated at once. Or no condition, repeated wheel sleep indication repeated with the ground relay action be located under the power of the plant with the isolated but continuing the trip without thirst making them above the investigation. And speed and fuel indicated on the governor. There are 2 pointers with the cover of the governor, and one of these pointers indicated the throttle position with the engine I labeled the speed, with the second pointer indicated the position with the power position over the 16th of the engine and labeled the fuel with the lower with the number of the fuel scale with the greater of the quantity of fuel being injected in the cylinder. The number of the 8 for the throttle speed position with the fuel indicator needle should read between 5 and 6 if the engine properly is low, but the general through pointer should be checked. Only in the number 8 throttle with the indicators of part of the main throttle misleading of the marked variation with the trouble that should be investigated, except for the fuel flow number indicating engine trouble, the maximal fuel indicated with the electrical trouble. Alright, isolation switch. Isolation switch must be firmly in and run down with the position obtained with the power of the unit. But the switch should be open with the closed only with the engine idle speed. With the stop of the U of the manual with the lay shaft of the ring engine speed, the idle speed, the stop of the engine locomotive under the power of the dynamic braking. Isolation switch should not be placed in run position while the other units of the dynamic braking listen and know the translator is off. But the safety is covered the way until the train is stopped. Alright, your load regulator. When operating the number 8 throttle, the position of load regulators throughout the locomotive should be approximately the same position. Stream unbound with the load regulator and one over the minimum field indication difficulty should be investigated during the fuel throttle opening with the shift over the minimum field arm to the 5 o'clock position. Trouble is either mechanical electrical maximum field arm is the 8 o'clock position. Inspect loss for the electrical load. Your fuel flow. The proper engine operation with a good fuel flow with a clear of 3 of bubbles should be indicated with the fuel return sight glass located with a duplex filter assembly nearest to the engine. Normally, a small amount of fuel leak will be plunged with a come out of the small hole standpipe of the bypass slight glass if the leakage is enough. The fuel flow over the top of the standpipe in fact should be reported with the maintenance. If no fluid over the fuel flowing from the return gas flow check fuel pump meters of fuel pumps. If the pump is also units are stopped with the pneumatic control switch, fuel pump with the switch for the pump view for the distribution panel do not confuse with the pump view for the fuel motor. If the pump other than the units running with the check setting on the engine for the control panel control switch 80 amp with the control view for the fuel pump motor view for the distribution panel with the units effective. If the pump is running with no fuel for the pumps, the check fuel supply, check emergency fuel cutoff arm for the unit with the check for the suction line in the piping the back of the tank of the pump with the check for the broken slipping or controlling coupling at the fuel pump. 329, overspeed trip. The trip of the fuel step of the injector for the engine does not be started with the engine end speed. If it's stopped, and always check with the overspeed with the trip of the pulling of the firmly level of the counterclockwise to be assured that it's set. And see figure 510 section 5 battery fuel tube. This is an 80 ampere tube for the battery fuel circuit with each for the main generator. Should this fuse blow with no power with the developer, then this is not unit affected. Battery fuel is located with the low voltage panel with electrical control cabinet with accessible with the door with the rear wall with the operating cab from the inspection battery platform B unit. 331. Running through water. Absolutely no circumstances should the locomotive element pass through water which is deeper than the touch of the bottom of the traction motor frame. When passing through water, always go at very low speeds, 2 to 3 miles per hour. Water any deeper than 3 inches above the top of the rail is likely to cause damage to the traction motor. Alright, operation of the F7 locomotive with the F3, with the FT, with the F2 unit. The main instance of the desirable to operate with a combination FT, F2, F3, F7 unit with the locomotive. This is accelerate. Acceptable capacity provided with the gear ratio is the same, and the wheel being entirely acceptable. The instruction will be below with their file with no change to the operation technique necessary except with the conditions be enlisted. Be careful with the operation of the F7 unit with the conjunction with the other units. The F7 unit with the lead transition indicator may show perfectly safe loading from the F7, but remember the FT, F2, F3 units do not have the tonnage rating as the F7 and the F7. The transition indicator will not show an overloaded trailing unit. The tonnage will have the adjustment of the unit. Lowest tonnage rating. The manual transition must be with all units that are not equipped with the automatic transition. Be sure the transition cutout switches are either the automatic or all, and manual throttles must be reduced to the number 6 position, number 2 and 3, and 3-2 when the operation manual transition position. Manual transition should it be necessary for the operator with the manual transition. The transition cutout switch is marked with the auto man. Located with the automatic transition panel that must be set with the planned man position. The automatic transition panel is at the top of the panel left side with the electrical control cabinet. Check with the automatic manual transition operation should be made with the under the power. If no longer necessary for the cut the automatic transition and remain with the unit that just become the automatic transition operative with the one unit with one or more unit for the equipment only necessary for the operator with the transition lever manually when they operate the time of the transition unit for the unit's manual position. The throttle must reduce to the 6 before with the marking the manual transition 2 to 3, 3 to 2. Throttles are again open at the run 8 and after this transition has been made. Alright, 334, locomotive unit with a different gear ratio may be operated with only with the under certain condition that operated with the tonnage to adjust for the gear with the highest speed with the overload with operating below the minimum speed with the train must not be operated with the speed higher than the top speed with the lowest gear locomotive. Alright, electric control cabinet, locations of the panels. A is your voltage regulator starter contactors. B is the low voltage. C is the automatic transition. D is high voltage control. E is reverser. C, F is the traction motor braking contactors. G the braking control. H low voltage distribution cab switch. Details of the equipment each of the panel are shown on the following pages. 3-2 cab view. 3 left view. Electrical control panel. Electric control cabinet with the panel A with the voltage regulator starting contractor panels. 1 is your voltage regulator. 2 is your engine room light switch. 3 is engine starting contactors. 4 your engine starting contactor interlocks. Electrical control cabinet panel B low voltage 3 reverser level 1 reverse control relay. 2 VT relay. 3 signal relay resistor. 4 auxiliary generate armature. 5 battery charging contactor. 6 battery field discharger resistor. 7 battery field contactor. 8 parallel relay. 9 no voltage relay. Electric controls cabinet panel C automatic transition panel 3-5. 1 time delay backward relay. 2 forward transition relay resistors. 3 forward resist. 3 forward transition relay. 4 time delay relay. 5 manual auto selector switch. Electric control cabinet panel D high voltage control equipment figure 3-6. 1 traction motor field shunting. 2 4 200 amp wheel slip resistors. 3 1 400 amp generator shunt field discharge resistor. 4 385 ohm resistor. 5 ground protective relay knife switch. 6 wheel slip relay relays. 7 your generator shunt field things. Or electrical control cabinet panel E reverser. 1 the reverser interlocks. 2 the reverser locking pin. 3 the reverser electrical control cabinet panel F power pan 10 contacting braking contactors. 1 braking contactors. 2 ground protective relay. 3 traction motor power contactors. 4 Reverser side view 5 braking 4 reverser side view 5 braking warning relay, sorry. Electric control panel G relay panel 1 is your alternator field resistor, 2 air brake relay, 3 air compressor relay, 4 fuel pump contactors, 5 single relay, 6 engine emergency relay, 7 field loop contactor location A units. Electrical control cabinet panel H distribution panel figure 1 fuse test lamp, 2 battery ammeter, 3 fuse test switch, 4 starting fuse 400 ampere. Electric control panel I cam switch, figure 31. 1 is your auxiliary cam switch. 2 is the cam switch. 3 is your backward transition relay. AC contactor panel 1, temperature control relay 2, 2 summer winter switches. 3 AC motor contactors. Alright, figure 313 engine control instrument panel. 1, isolation switch. 2, engine stop button. 3, fuel pump motor switch. 4, engine start push button. 5, lube oil pressure gauge. 6, fuel oil gauge tank level. 7, low oil suction gauge. Section 4, cooling, lubricating oil, and fuel oil systems.